Okay, welcome everybody to Omnic Lab. This is episode 143, and we're going to be talking about the new meta winners in March of 2019 for those of you listening back on the archive. Basically, we're going to be talking about the differences between what we felt was powerful on PTR and then kind of how things are kind of starting to move and maneuver towards this new setup on the new patch notes as we get into the next season. The next new patch for Overwatch League is going to be played on this particular patch. Maybe I don't know if they're going to. We got a new patch that dropped today. We're actually not going to cover that. We're going to wait until after this week to cover it, so we have more time to look at it and test it out. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at this week. Andres and I have had just an absolute nuts thing. I've had some family issues going on in the back that I don't really want to talk about, but there's some other things that we wanted to discuss real quick before we jump into the show this week. And the first thing is the most exciting is game night is coming up this week.
Woo!
And it is on the 29th. The last Friday of every month is game night for Omnic Lab. So show up in the Discord, hop into the game night channel, drop your battle tag, and join a voice channel. That's all you need to do. You don't need to be a certain rank. You don't even need to be a rank. You can just show up and play the game. And it's a great way to learn.
And with all these new changes, I'm excited for game night because it's always a great time to experiment, right? And play heroes that you don't normally play. You're always playing with friends, so nobody's gonna flame you for playing Torbjorn or something. So I don't know. I'm excited for this game night. I'm ready to try it out and see what people are playing.
Yeah, and if you want to build up a rapport to start trash talking, then you can join the separate lobby and where all the trash talkers go. No, but most people end up giving Andres and I a lot of trash, and it's well, bring it on, show up and give it to us. We can take it. But yeah, we love our good old game night every week, or sorry, we wish we could run it every week, but now it's on every month. Please show up. I think I'm gonna be able to make this one for a good extension. I might be doing something a little bit after that, so I can't necessarily stay as long, but I'm excited to play with some of the community. And just a reminder, we are still on Spotify, so share that link, hop on there, check us out there, as well as check out our new Patreon goals on patreon.com/omniclab. I've already gotten contacted about one person in particular wanting some Ana pointers, but we have a new $2.50 Patreon goal where you can sit down and schedule an event with Andres or myself, and we will do a 1-hour coaching session with you. We can hop in Discord. You can share a VOD with us. We can walk you through a VOD. We can walk you through a quick play match and just spectate, or you can do a competitive mode and share your screen in Discord. But yeah, please reach out to Discord. Andres, do you have any other notes on this one?
Yeah, I'm just excited about it. One person already reached out to us. If you guys are interested in this perk and taking advantage of it, and you're a $2.50 Patreon, you can reach out to us through Discord or through the email. Use the email that you use for Patreon and send us an email. We can schedule a session for you guys, or through Discord is a great place to do it, either through the Patreon specific channel or just sending us a private DM to Rob or I, and we can set up a time and go ahead and, do some coaching.
And it's not PC exclusive. If you can figure out how to get us a VOD or get us a screen share while you're on your Xbox or PlayStation 4, we'd love to help you out.
Yes, my friend Aaron actually reached out and he asked me, "Hey, can you do this for Xbox?" And yeah, of course, as long as you have a way to capture the video, like a streaming card or some way to share it. If you if you really have to, maybe you can use your webcam and aim it at the TV or something. I don't know if we can get the best
It's
detail
a little
there.
scuff, but it'll work.
Yeah, but we can make it work one way or another.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're in Xbox or anything, he also asked me if I'd be open to reviewing a VOD for his team. And yes, if you want to use the session to review VODs for your team and stuff, we can also do that.
All you have to be is a platinum level on the Patreon, which is the $2.50 per content support level. Last up we have is our partners and sponsors. We have Top Score Solutions. That is a esports oriented community and business for business education and analytics. If you guys want to help want help to develop, well, I cannot talk today. It's been a day. If you want help with businesses or services, organizations, etc., you can center those around gaming. You can check out topscoresolutions.com, or check out there in case you missed it blog update. You can join their Discord community, but just remember, go to their website and all the links can be found there at topscoresolutions.com. You can also check out our new stat update with the Overwatch League for Omnic Meta with Switch. He will be doing some more analysis based on that. And we got some really cool news to kind of bridge the gap out of our partnerships. Andres, did you see that there was something that Jane put out this on? I saw the clip on Twitch. Basically, the Overwatch League viewer that we kind of got for Overwatch World Cup is coming to the players supposedly for stage 2, and they'd like to make sure internally that it might be available to the general public by stage 3.
I did hear about it. I didn't see personally the clip that you're talking about, but some people were talking about it last night too. And yeah, apparently it's coming specifically for the coaches. And I think it's a
Yeah.
huge tool for the coaches because right now we have a pseudo viewer on Twitch and it's
And
great,
it's live only.
but you can only do it live. And like, you miss so much, right? Because like you're watching the specific person you want to watch at that time or the main broadcast. But then everything else is lost. And I really wish that we could go back and be like, oh, this time I want to watch it from Jonak's perspective, or you know what? I
Yeah.
want to watch it from Haxel's perspective. Like usually I lean towards watching like the Zaryas or the Divas sometimes. But I also would like to see what the Brigitte is doing. Like I'm not that interested in the live performance of the Brigitte, but like later on, maybe if I'm trying to practice my Brigitte, it would be nice to go and check out some of the best players in it, or same with Lucio and stuff. I miss
Yeah,
that.
I've
And
been
for
watching a lot of
coaches,
Lucio.
yeah, for coaches, this is gonna be huge, right? Being able to go back and analyze every single person on the enemy team and what they were doing, how they were getting counter, or how they can counter them too. So this is huge.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you've ever watched like professional sports where they have like a continual play, you basically will use the overhead and the broadcast view to review your footage. And then when you get to certain critical moments in the game, then that's when you start wanting to go into the nitty-gritty. You're like, okay, can I put my camera where I want to go? Can I see these? In games like soccer, it's not really helpful to get behind the camera or behind the perspective of your players. But in a sport like football, you can have a completely different orientation of how the game looks when you have the camera like over a shoulder, or like how somebody's running a route, or in the quarterback's point of view. You can really see how things start to break down. So it's kind of the same thing with Overwatch. When you have a situation that goes wrong, you can watch it in real time, but then like you're like, okay, well I want to write a timestamp down and I want to go back and watch this from my Zarya because I think that we could have played that better. But yeah, I really want to see this. And honestly, this is the one thing that Overwatch really could do right, is by giving us a replay system in our own games, to the general public and not just to players and stuff for a viewer for the Overwatch League. I'm really excited that this is coming soon because it does give us the indication that that could be on the horizon for the player base.
Yeah, this does seem that is leading up to it, and the viewer had the replay capabilities. You could go back and kind of like review. You could speed it up. So as
Hmm.
long as that's still in there, we'll probably get a replay system pretty soon, and that makes me so excited.
It would be super killer for highlight reels too for content creators for like us.
Yeah,
So
you have
I'm
an
really
awesome
excited for
play. You
that.
can find any angle that you want from it. You know what I mean?
Oh, the angles. You do like bullet time from Matrix and just pull that in for your aimbot soldier ults out there. All right. So let's get into the patch notes that we've already covered, but have kind of Andres has been playing and has like 3 main notes, and then I'm gonna kind of intertwine a bit more with some other key things that I found with this patch so far that have been really, really outperforming what our predictions had kind of come through. So, Andres, you had Hammond, Ash, and Soldier. Why don't you talk about those 3 in depth here?
Yeah. So the new patch has hit. A lot of things have changed. A lot of people have been waiting for this patch to hit. A lot of people have been hailing as the death of goats. And so far, there's been some clear winners. And I also want to touch at the end of this discussion whether Goats is dead or not, and kind of just give like a post patch kind of analysis. It is still a little bit early, and as we know, Blizzard is still adding some more changes. They're being very aggressive with changes lately, and we'll talk about all of that. Let's start with some of the characters that I think that have had the most gain this patch, and the one that first comes to mind is Soldier 76. It's interesting how popular Soldier 76 has been this week. I don't know if it's because I was playing a group that we had a guy that wanted to go Soldier 76 every game, but we were also facing teams who constantly were just pulling out Soldier every time. And he feels really good. He is hitting really hard. His range is quite scary, and he's mobile enough that if the enemy team is not playing very divey heroes that can kind of catch up to him, he can find some great angles and just be a general nuisance. The second, and he's very self sufficient, right? He's kind of like a lone wolf in that sense. Um, he's not a hero that requires some crazy mechanical skills. It does require some solid tracking and good aim. But as long as you have that and you have some solid game sense, it's a hero that a lot of people can pick up. So it's interesting that Soldier has gained a lot of popularity lately, and it might be due to the fact that a lot of people in the ladder are playing like 4 DPS compositions, sometimes with like a single tank or something. Hammond has also rise in popularity this week.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your impression, Rob? Have you seen some more Soldier 76 this week?
I've definitely been playing with and against a lot more soldiers than I have seen since quad tank was even a thing.
Yeah.
But I think that I kind of understand it because I remember when you and I were talking about triple DPS before Goats was even available. And anytime you pick up multiple DPS that is over the marker for 2, you kind of have to hit some certain things on the menu, as it were, right? They either need to be super mobile or super self-sufficient in some way, or they have some way of sustaining the team or sustaining themselves, right?
Right.
So some kind of self-sufficiency with regards to how they move, how mobile they are, how quickly they can get out in and out. And the other one would just be how can they sustain themselves as well as sustain the team. Soldier has a very different approach. It doesn't have a Genji dash to bail, it doesn't have a tracer recall, it doesn't have a somber recall translocator, but he does have the ability to kind of drop a heal in a station if he's in trouble and kind of fight through it. He also has the ability to run at the same time, albeit a little slower. He can do a little bit of mobility and a little bit of self-sustain. So he has that in his kit, and now he actually has the capability of deleting other people when you're running up against another composition that's very DPS heavy. The team with the soldier traditionally looks a little bit stronger because they have that extra little juice of healing. They also have the little extra juice of just sustained fire to confirm targets when you're tracking well. And then the
Yeah.
Helix rocket is a really great initiation if everyone's like, oh, kill this target. You start off with 125 damage right to the dome, and then you can go from there.
That's one of the main things that I've noticed. His burst has increased exponentially, or not exponentially, but I think that it's finally reached like the limit where it's like, whoa, this is actually quite dangerous, right?
It's an extra 5 damage off the top, more or less.
I've been bursted by soldiers quite quick this week. I was playing McCree and I was going around this bridge, and the soldier found like a really good angle, like looking right from above me, and he had decent tracking. He got 3 headshots right as he kind of like tracked me, and then did his Helix rocket, and I was dead.
Mm-hmm.
It took like
Yep.
1.5 seconds. I was like, pop, 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 pop. Through his Felix rocket, I was done. I barely got like one shot off with McCree, right? And I was shooting at him as soon as I saw him, um, but it was fast enough that I was like, okay, I don't think I could have killed him faster than he killed me. Um, so I don't know. His burst feels really good, and the sustained damage that he puts out puts a lot of pressure, especially if you're not playing with a lot of shields and your team kind of is out in the open. Cooldowns ran out really quick, right? Like your defensive cooldowns, you have one recall, you have one translocator, you have one deflect. With McCree, you don't even have anything, right? So if you don't have a shield, Soldier 76, you're making his day.
Hmm.
And you play really grittily, right? Like really good soldiers in this meta so far that I've seen keep their distance really well. The second they feel somebody's gonna close the gap on them and it's dangerous for them, they just relocate. And because you have the sprint, it's not a huge opportunity cost for you to just go somewhere else. Kind of like it is for a Zenyatta or a McCree or an Anna. You have to weigh that into your decision making, right? Like it's gonna take me some time to relocate my position. Can I afford to do that, or will I be out of the fight for too long if I'm doing this? With Soldier, it's less of a concern because you get to places so fast. And you can also do that rocket jump, so you can abuse that to even relocate
You can get a
yourself
little bit of,
even
yeah.
more. So he's relatively mobile for like a guy that doesn't have like some crazy movement abilities, right?
Yeah, I have noticed that of the DPS compositions that are running Soldier, he does seem to be a bit more like fulfilling a diva role where he's kind of brawly, if that makes sense, more of like a bruiser. But he doesn't necessarily need to be like right in your face to do that. He's much more of a mid-range look at diva and a lot more offensive and less defensive and more kind of like he can kind of cruise on him on his own. And
Yeah, you're playing him
the
kind
other
of
thing
like
too is
a
like you can
mid-range
outrange him.
widow.
Yeah, you can outrange him quite easily though. Like if a team is just running Widow and Hanzo and Ashe, I've seen those comps just completely shut him down. I've also seen people just run Sombra Tracer Genji and dive him and he's the first target. That's also been quite successful. But that being said, if Soldier is kind of sitting on a Mercy, for example, or the Soldier is sitting with another DPS and kind of doing a sustained fight, maybe he's sitting on top of the Hanzo together. Storm arrows plus a Helix rocket, if you're diving both of them, is real deadly, and it's pretty hard to combat that even when you're diving everything. But I kind of want to just highlight like the ability to play DPS for starters at the upper echelons is definitely feels a little bit more like rewarding. Like you don't necessarily feel like you're not doing as much, even when you're dishing out a lot of damage. It's like, well, I'm just farming on my ult until I can hit Q, and then something happens. You know, like now it's like there's a little bit more of a neutral game in Overwatch. It feels that it actually means something instead of like trying to just fight for the ultimate economy and kind of stay ahead.
I mean, Ultimate Economy is always gonna be big, but yeah, maybe. I mean, when watching Goat's Ultimate Economy is almost everything. So yeah, when you're watching other compositions, it does take a little bit more of a backseat. But that being
Sure.
said, another hero that I think got a big gain is Ash. It didn't seem like it was gonna be that much, but the fact that damage over time now doesn't care about armor and it deals as much damage as just if you had regular health, and also the fact that you can damage boost her, and before the damage boost wasn't registering on her dynamite, is big. I've been getting some insanely high damage games with Ash, and she's doing a lot of damage with that dynamite. If you know how to use it and you're using it on cooldown and you're getting at least one, maybe two targets at a time, man, the damage output that you can do is insane.
It's actually 30% more effective now because it used to be like when you're hitting an armored target, it would be a 50% per tick would be removed or half damage. And now it's just a flat 20%, sorry.
Yeah,
Flat
like every time I
20%.
throw it on top of a Reinhardt, I pretty much take away all of it, almost all of his armor, just from the
Yeah.
dynamite. No shots, just from the dynamite.
Yeah.
Almost all of it is gone. It's huge. I've been getting games where I've been getting 17,000 to 20K easily on Ash, and that is such a high number, especially for a diamond scrub like me kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's especially if you get him consistently. Because I'm not talking about like, hey, I got a one-off 70K game. No, it's like, oh, this is my regular with her now. So huge damage output for Ash. I think that her and characters like Junkrat together are looking very scary. Her and like Widow can be like a great like double kind of like sniper style meta, and you still get Bob to help you out with it. And I've always thought this since she came out, but she's a great kind of like solo hero. If you love DPS and you want to go DPS and you're kind of like soloing in the ladder, I always love Ashe because she's one of those DPSs that always feels like you can actually play the point because of Bob, right? With Widowmaker, with Genji, with McCree, you cannot contest the objective whenever you feel like contesting the objective. You need a tank to kind of like walk you in, or your team to at least be there if you want to put any pressure into the point. But with Ashe, you can almost like set the pace of the battle. Be like, oh, I think this is a good time to contest the objective. Send Bob. I still get to be on a safe position. Bob is tanking enough, and you don't want to like face Bob straight up. So as long as he doesn't get left or anything, you're good to go. And even if he gets left or CC'd, it's already buying time for your team and hopefully space that now you can kind of lead up into like that fight, right? Like this is a time to contest. So I always love that you can kind of take matters into your own hands with Ashe, plus having that insane damage output that she has.
Yeah, I also think that what you can do with Ashe's Bob has been in the past like not really well explored despite her being out for since BlizzCon. I still feel like Bob has got a lot more interesting use cases that you can do. And in this setup, I feel like Bob is much more useful where you can just throw him in a corner or you can throw him to disengage. You don't necessarily have to throw him to do anything. Like he definitely feels like a really well placed defensive tool that you have in your arsenal. And
Oh yeah, he's very versatile. You can use it for so many things.
right, and with your dynamite being such that you can essentially just negate a push or stall for time, or you can use it to kind of split teams up by saying I'm not going to let you in here. People are really scared of the dynamite now, like rightfully so, I must say, but
They should be
the
for sure.
yeah, cuz it does a lot more damage, especially tanks. I feel like dynamite has made Winston's kind of like have the ants in their pants, you know what I mean? Where they're like, I gotta jump soon or the Ash is just gonna dynamite me because they don't have a whole lot of armor. And once it rips through the armor, they're taking a lot of damage and it rips through the armor a lot faster now. So they can take the full damage from it. And it's kind of the same scenario with the other tanks that don't have it at all. Or it rips through the armor first from Vegeta now that it's not stacked underneath of temporary shields for Zenyatta and Zarya. So Zarya's feeling the force of nature and definitely needing to save those barriers for cleanses. But the cool thing here that I wanted to take a quick note, and Andres made a quick note of this, was Hammond. Hammond is got that change where he can stay in ball form while gaining shields. And this turned out to be much bigger of an impact than even we thought was going to be great. It was like one of those great changes that we're like, yeah, this will be great for, not having to worry about too much when you're playing ball. You can, you can still maintain the chaos and do that. It's like, well, let me tell you, maintaining chaos is a plus for for Hammond now. Like he is the king of chaos when he doesn't have to get out of his ball form and just stay sustainable. You can pop in a ball form and peace out while you're shielding. You can engage while shielding, and it doesn't. You don't skip any beats at all. It's pretty incredible. You can just use it
Yeah,
anytime you want.
Hammond is looking really good right now, and I want to really talk about him. I just want to answer this question real quick from the chat. Shazir asks, is there a pro level usage for Ashe? It seems like she doesn't do enough between McCree and Widow. It's an interesting question, and to be fair, we haven't seen very much of Ashe in Overwatch League, so it's a fair question. I do think that going forward, bunker comp is looking a lot better, and by bunker comp, I mean like Orisa. You can fit in a Bastion in
Bastion.
there. You can fit in like Baptiste. Basically, a composition that bunkers down and just has an insane damage output. So you kind of have to either scram out of there or go and take the fight to them because there's no way you can damage them from like afar. They're kind of shielded with the Orisa, so they kind of like bunker down with a just insane burst damage. So Bastion has been normally the go-to in this kind of composition. Some people bring in a Symmetra to be able to move around the bunker comp into positions that you normally don't get access to. And yeah, you bring healers that like Anna that can either output a lot of healing right there and also have some range, so they're still effective at dealing some damage. Or Baptiste, the new Baptiste actually is looking really good. He has a decent range, and his ultimate, the Matrix, boosts the damage insanely, making this bunker comp even harder to deal with. Plus, his immortality field fits right into it. Somebody throws a diva bomb into your bunker or anything, you have a way out of that. And having said that, there's two heroes that are looking quite good for this composition that haven't originally been part of it, but Junkrat and Ash. And I say those two because both of them are getting huge damage boosts. They have a lot of damage output with Dynamite and a pretty good range. And with Defense Matrix and other damage boosts, like it starts looking quite dangerous. But also because the main weakness of Bunker Comp is dive, right? Heroes that can just dive straight in there, like Genji, Diva, Tracer just going in there trying to pulse bomb and going out. All these heroes are super dangerous for Bunker Comp or even Winston that kind of take the fight up to them rather than having to contest the objective below. But Junkrat and Ash are good anti-dive heroes. They got boops. They can get away of things. They can push people back. And now with the boop changes, especially to Winston and Diva, they can actually deflect that aggression, right? Junkrat just throws a concussive mine at you, or Ash uses Coach Gun, and there goes your dive. They're out. So I don't know. I think there's a time and place for them coming up. Hopefully, we'll see them pro play, maybe in this, just because they're a nice in betweener between, hey, we're still really good at dealing damage at range, but if you try to dive us, it's quite dangerous.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Paris is going to be where you're going to see a lot of the bunker comps kind of set up on defense in particular, and also where you're going to see a lot of teams say, well, this is necessary for us to run Junkrat to kind of punch through here. And something that Andres and I kind of found while we were playing is that multi DPS defense is very strong on point B of Paris, where you just run a Mercy as a solo healer, or even just a Mercy Lucio or a Mercy Baptiste if you like. But I found that Lucio is kind of the better one of the options there. And then you just run around like crazy. You set up Ash, you have Bob, you've got the ability to just spam corners with Junkrat. You've got a soldier setting up to kind of sustain you. You can even set up a Widow somewhere or a Pharah and just keep splash damage going, and then play for the res on somebody who dies. You can even run McCree here. Like it's and Sombra's also very, very powerful in bunker comp to kind of set things up. If they do want to dive, you can kind of mid hack a diva so that she doesn't have any of her tools once she gets in there. You can also hack other targets and just kind of split with them. But the same thing could be said of running a defensive something else in place of the Sombra. Like Andres was saying, you could run a defensive Junkrat on top of that with your Bastion. You could run you could run a Soldier 76 or an Ash to help you out on defense. And then on offense, Junkrat's just like really, really good at bursting through barriers. So if you go run a Junkrat Hanzo with dive tanks, then you can really punch through barriers quite quickly and efficiently. But it doesn't restrict you to those heroes. You have Genji and Tracer as well. So the other thing that I wanted to highlight on my end was the strength that you're going to be seeing with Mercy this coming patch. Why does this happen? Well, for me, it's because like we have to do with anything is you look at the heroes that are changed, and then you look at what heroes are in that same category that remain unfazed. So we have Moira and Mercy, and both of them are unfazed. But the difference is, what you see with the difference between Moira and Mercy is that Moira has somebody that's kind of competing for her same spot in Baptiste. Baptiste essentially does a lot of what Moira does, but has a less defensive and more offensive ultimate that provides more utility with his kit, in that he provides more damage, he has more burst heal potential, whereas Moira doesn't have the burst. It's more of the sustained setup, and Baptiste is feeling sustained and burst at the same time. So Moira is a big like losing category inside of the support now that you have Baptiste as access. Even though he's a ranged healer, he definitely performs better at close ranges when people are bunched up. The other side is that Mercy doesn't really have anything else that she's competing with in the same categorical sense. But you see Zenyatta's orbs are toned down. You also have Brigitte toned way down again when the armor shifts. You have other stuff going at play with Lucio being less utilitarian with his speed, even though speed is so much of a king. But when you have multiple DPS compositions where people are running around like crazy and you can't just go and heal everyone, even in those scenarios, especially if you have somebody that can kind of sit in the back and someone can kind of front line, you can get free resurrections on those back lines. You can pocket your ashes, you can pocket your soldiers, you can do stuff like that, or you can just run the Ana. So I think that Mercy is becoming more of a viable pick, I guess you could say, especially when you can start stacking up some damage boosts and running a bunch of DPS with a Valkyrie going in behind them is pretty darn scary.
Yeah, and it's all about the change in meta, right? Because it's not like Mercy suddenly is like so much better, but the heroes that are getting picked around her can definitely use Mercy a little bit better. When we're talking about strictly goats, Mercy just doesn't bring that much to the table. Her heals are okay, and then she has like no more utility to the team aside from that. She has a lot of utility on her own, though, right? She has insane mobility that doesn't get used in Ghosts at all because everyone's together anyway.
Right.
But when you're running 4 DPS, 3 DPS, and a Hammond, right? And you gotta keep up with that, and people are jumping all over the place. Maybe you even have a Pharah. That's Mercy's playground right there. You have
When
everyone
everyone's
is
split
spread out
up,
on the
that's
map.
your playground.
Yeah, then your mobility becomes a huge asset, right?
Right.
And the ability for you to stick to a hero and kind of like keep him alive, damage boost him, make him like that much better at that time, then fly away wherever somebody
Yep.
else needs you, fits really well into that playstyle. Especially the Hammond that you were mentioning has become so popular lately because that change that he had is very impactful. You can actually now, you don't even have to pile drive into people. You can just gain speed and kind of like bowling
Use your shield
ball
and get out.
your way through it. Yeah, and that's what I've been doing. I've been playing some Hammond this week because in the team that we were playing, we already had plenty of DPS, and we had to play with some randos. So they're gonna go DPS. So I ended up being
Right.
main tank a lot of the time. And Hammond is a good solo tank to create that sort of distraction, especially in the ladder, where you're not gonna run into a lot of really organized goats teams or
Yeah.
or teams that can really like come together really hard on you. You can get away with a lot of things with Hammond. And this new change makes him live for so long. You're just trying to create distractions and space for your team constantly, create angles for your DPS, throw him up in the air, and hopefully your soldier will finish him off, or your Sombra will come from behind. You just gotta watch out for Anas. Those are still pretty dangerous for you because they can still sleep you, nade you, and make life really hard for you. But aside from that, you can be very aggressive.
So, Andres and I wanted to talk next about the boop changes and how velocity has kind of shifted this last patch. Kind of basically telling the community that we kind of have to relearn how boops are oriented. There are times when Winstons are taking a jump, or when Diva Bombs are going at it, or when you can speed boost a Diva Bomb or a Bob. Anytime something like this happens, when things are being flown around or midair and trying to like their in air movement, Lucio's in particular are feeling the strongest with this particular change in that their boop just dominates everything. Even though they got the reduction in their speed, if a diva is coming to dive you or a Winston is coming to dive you, and let's say you're playing bunker comp, then you can just sit there, wait for them to get close enough, and use your boop, and they can't come in. It's really, really, really powerful. And on top of that, you have the directional change that you can kind of input in if you're wall riding above the targets. Let's say they're moving on a bridge, or they're moving across the pit, right? And in well, you can maneuver them there. In the lighthouse, you can boop them on the backside. There's so many good environmental areas that you can kill people, and I have not seen this much like control over what you can do in a game as far as tempo is concerned with regards to good Lucio play than now, because they've just made it way more accessible, I could say, with balancing Diva. Apparently, Diva just literally broke gravity in this game. in particular. And Diva's so often picked that it's just such a widespread change that Lucio feels really, really good now with
No,
these boop
this
changes.
boob changes are quite significant. We got Bob in the
Same with
chat over
Hammond.
here saying that he's felt it and he's a little scared because I remember him mentioning like, whoa, he was trying to jump in with Winston and just being denied by the Lucio constantly. And you didn't expect that because we've been playing Overwatch for what, 3 years, and
Yeah.
we've never experienced boops like that. You know, when you're diving in with Diva, you always expect to get to the plays you want to get every time because you have full control of it. That's no longer the case, my friends, and now you can actually get booped around, and it's something that you have to keep in mind. You can no longer
Mm-hmm.
just fly around with no concern for your life if you're next to like a precipice, right? That can
Yeah.
be very dangerous. You might have to approach Lucio by foot, and then once he boops you, then you're free to use your rockets as you need to.
Mm-hmm. And
Peeling
this is
just became that
true.
much stronger too.
Right. This is also true in the reverse sense. If you're trying to set up a play and not necessarily go for an environmental kill or a disengage, you can do this offensively as well. Where you're setting up a shatter, you literally can just go around the team and wait for the Reinhardt to kind of pair up to your ally Rhine, and then you can boop him slightly up in the air, and then it's over because of how much control you have now. Furthermore, I've even
Oh,
seen a clip
you've been able
this
to do that
week.
before, but yeah, you can also do that
Yeah, but it feels like you
now.
have way more control, and like the momentum goes much further than it did prior, if that makes
hmm
sense.
It's definitely
Especially
changed the whole
it's
momentum kind of
weird.
thing. Yeah, you gotta
Y-
experiment or experience it for
Yeah.
yourselves.
I've even seen a clip this week of a Pharah that was doing that jumped up into a fight immediately, and the diva was going after her to like pre-matrix and diver. And the after the matrix went down, the Pharah just shot her right in the face with a boop, and she just went flying. And I'm not even. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Is seeing a diva dive into a Pharah head first to go kill her, and just getting denied with a boop. It's just
That's
crazy
huge. That
things
is
going
huge
on.
for Farah's. Like one of the things that you do with Diva is you just dive head straight into the Farah as she's flying into the air because
Right?
she's low,
Yeah.
right? When Farah's in the air, she can't really move very fast. But now you can kind of wait for the Diva to come to you and boop her straight in the face. Yeah, like you were saying. And not only will it send her flying back, it will send you flying back, and you can create a huge gap real fast.
Yeah. All right. There are, of course, many other things with this patch that we could be discussing right now as far as winners and losers or people that are doing really, really surprisingly well. But these are just kind of, again, these are still first iterations of these characters. We've still only had about a week and a half on this patch right now. And in next week, after this concludes, then we have Baptiste to kind of add as a new flavor for the new patch that we're going to have a lot of people experimenting with in your games and mine. So
Mm-hmm.
brace yourselves because it's coming. And it's also going to be all over the place in game night. People are going to want to play Bastion and Bunker and Baptiste and all that jazz. But is Goats really dead? And
The
Andres, why don't you
million
start
dollar
us off here?
question.
Is this the question that we can answer yet? Can we
So
actually get this conclusion?
I I'm a little in between here. And to be honest, I think that it's partially dead, but I don't think it's completely dead. And I don't think it's completely dead, especially at the highest levels of play. When people are actually playing goats correctly and they really know how to take advantage of the composition. If we're talking about strictly the latter, goats is looking a lot weaker. And I think that people are going to favor other things over goats for the most part. Maybe not at the highest levels, who knows? Maybe they will do, but DPS are looking quite good. And if you're playing against the disorganized goats that are not using their cooldowns at the right times, that are not playing corners, that are not contesting the point when they need to be contesting the point, I think that it's gonna look like a slam dunk. Like you're just gonna run over those teams, no problem. You're gonna use Hammond to get in there, cause chaos. You got 5 DPS just running circles around them. There's gonna be no cohesion in the goats, and I think it's gonna look bad pretty fast. When you go into Overwatch League, and we were having a conversation about this yesterday with Frito from your Overwatch in our recap. I recommend you guys check out that episode because he's a very knowledgeable guy. But he did point out some interesting facts, and goats is still the best composition to play the point. And we talked about this last night on how there's no better combo of heroes to contest an objective or to stand in a place and demand your attention immediately than goats. And we're playing Overwatch, right? Overwatch is a game of, can you push the payload? Can you take over point A or point B? And that requires a composition that is very strong in that regard. And even 5 DPS comps or 4 DPS comps with Hammond and one healer don't really play that game. Instead, they're playing the game of, can we burst him down and kill him, and then we'll worry about the objective, right? It's a kill first composition, while Goats is an objective first composition, and you're playing always for the objective. So I don't know if these changes are enough to kind of like combat that, just because it, we mentioned it yesterday. If Overwatch League was a deathmatch event, then Goats would be dead a long time ago. But Overwatch League is based on objective play, and Goats is still the best composition for that. So I think in the latter, it's looking a lot weaker. I don't think we're gonna see it being as dominant, and I think people are gonna favor more mobile, more DPS heavy comps. In Overwatch League, it's hard to tell, and I think it's why Blizzard is still doing some more changes, like adding more speed to the Junkrat mines that we'll talk about in more depth next episode. But I think that they're not completely sure that Goats is going to disappear.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of can say yes and no to this. I did do a little bit of research on this particular question moving into the next patch, and I saw something that Jane had said where he's like, I don't think Blizzard wants to kill it
I don't
the
think so
way that
either.
they've done in the past, and especially when you have a hero like Brigitte in the context and the texture of the current state of Overwatch, I don't think you ever really can go back on that. And unless the hero is deleted, and we know that that's just not going to happen. So
Right.
with that in mind, what they've done is they've done like over and over and over, they've done different changes to retooling a main hero, and then retooling the structure of where that hero is, and then they've done a whole restructuring on armor, and then they've done a restructuring on where armor is placed, and then they've done another restructuring on a couple other problems that they have with individual heroes. And so those things all add up over time to say, this strategy, we don't want it to go away. We want it to be in the game, but we don't want it to be good on every single map. We don't want it to be good on attack and on defense per se. We want it to fit in the same context that all of the other compositions in Overwatch fit. If Goats and another composition of, let's say, dive, of 222 dive exists, then in that context, the 222 dive should be strong and not like have a Goats comp where it's like, well, Goats is okay here or Goats is okay here, and this comp is supposed to be really good because of the structure of the map. It just kind of like starts falling apart based off of the sheer power of something. That's when something's a problem. And so what they're trying to do with these changes over time is now we're trying to sit in this new meta where it's finally hit a critical mass. Goats is no longer just passable and borderline good at, like, actually quite good when you're playing it on a ladder system with an unorganized play to play a highly organized strategy. If you're playing a highly organized strategy when you're running Goats, right? That's those two things go hand in hand. You got to be playing those two things really, really well together as a team. If you're not doing that, then the Goat strategy really starts falling apart, and that's what you start to see at Overwatch League at the top level.
And that's a key point,
Gotta
because
play
I think
together.
you're right. I don't think Blizzard wants to kill Goats, because Goats is not a mindless composition. To play Goats really well, it requires a huge amount of teamwork, and it's not as flashy as watching Agilities go with Genji into a room and kill 6 people in like one
Right.
blade, or Carpe doing some incredible shots on Widowmaker. Yeah, it's not as flashy as that, but that being said, it's still a composition that requires a lot of strategy, a lot of on the fly decision making, huge amounts of focus. And just go watch Vancouver versus San Francisco Shock, the finals. It was actually really entertaining and really exciting to watch. So I really think that, yeah, they don't want to get rid of Goats, because Goats, I think, has a time and place and it's kind of fun to watch. The only
Mm.
problem is that people have realized that it's the best way to play objective oriented Overwatch. And when you have money on the line and people need you to win, then you play whatever it is that gives you the best chances of winning. And Goats is that right now. And I don't know if Blizzard will be able to change that without implementing some hard rules, like things like um 2 2
A
2,
role based
like a role base. You
setup.
have to play 2 2 2 in Overwatch League or in competitive. I don't know if there's any other way to solve it unless you nerf tanks a lot. But then if you nerf tanks a lot, then you basically take him out of the game, right? Like you just play 6 DPS or 5 DPS and one healer, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think all things considered, you definitely want to look at the game of Overwatch as being, okay, if all things are equal, we want two things to be true. We want strategies to be diverse and anyone can use them. Right? We want them to be able to be freely chosen at any map. You can choose them for any reason. Maybe the map is the main issue of decision making. That could be very well to be true. But at the same time, if A, B, and C are all considerations for team strategies, the thing that comes down to it is team synergy and mechanics, right? Can you play well as a team and can you perform those at the highest mechanical function that you can? Because if you can do both of those things and then something else just pops up, like Goats, for example, where it's like even average teams can compete with much better teams because their team synergy is equal, even if the mechanical ability is not really there. There's all kinds of things that you can do, but like when it just comes down to ultimate use and like setting up certain fights with these abilities, I feel like you should have multiple strategies where the team synergy and the team play is still in place and it doesn't have to revolve around one particular setup of heroes. Like you should be rewarded to be playing really well as a team and not be punished just because you're not playing, what's there. And Chengdu really showcased this, and that's why we showcased them last week. Is they're saying,
Yeah,
look, we're really good
Chengdu
at
was
this
doing
playing
it.
as a team,
They were doing a
and we're gonna do
statement
that.
for sure. But
Yeah,
even for Chengdu, they still struggled against Goats, and it's not like
exactly.
their composition it's going to become the new meta, right? It's not like, oh, this is it. This is
It's
what
just
kills
really
Goats.
what
It
they
just
played
happens to,
well.
be yeah, they play it so well that they sometimes will win with it, and it's very entertaining to watch, which does bring up the point, like Overwatch is not just goats, and it would be nice to have other compositions, like you were saying. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this patch is the goats killer, as we were talking about it. I think for the latter, it's gonna be a big shakeup. Um, don't know so much for the highest level of Overwatch League play, so we'll have to stay tuned for that.
There is something also that you could kind of like insert as an X factor here, or maybe as a plausible consideration, is that maybe the maps need adjusting in Overwatch because they've adjusted pretty much everything with the
Offline map,
heroes.
you have to use
Maybe there's
Pharah.
something maybe there's something that needs to be adjusted on Anubis, or maybe they need to tone down a certain approach path on Eichenwald. Maybe there needs to be more environmental kills and in pretty much all of the maps that don't have a whole lot of them. I mean, King's Row has an environmental kill block, but that's only on point 3. Between point B and point 2 and point 3. Eichenwald has kill blocks, but they're relatively out of the way for point A. For point B, there are plenty, and then for point C, there's none. So maybe there just needs to be more central pieces for each of the heroes to take advantage of that. Maybe there needs to be less narrow chokes. Maybe the chokes just need to be more open in general. Or maybe they need to balance maps to have, okay, this map in this category has one that's wide, and this map has a choke that's narrow. So that's something that you can consider, because like the maps are typically where Goats really should be showcasing its strength now, because it's all centralized or centered around the point. And if the point is, too small, or the point is really easy for them to shine, then maybe you just make the point really, really hard for them to sit there.
Yeah, and
Like Busan.
I
I don't
think
know.
that map design has been the main way they've been trying to tackle it. And for the most part, they try to be pretty inclusive with map design, giving a slight edge to certain heroes. Especially, I think that control maps actually offer the most diversity, right? Because
Right.
those are the ones that have the most kind of like dangerous territory, like a lot of like boop locations, or even maps like Icon
Ilios,
Wall that
Lijiang.
like emphasize mobility a little bit more. That's when you start seeing compositions with heavier DPS or using Pharah, stuff like that come more into play. Dive compositions, even maps like Volskaya Industries, right, where you have a little bit more high ground, or Gibraltar. They really incentivize teams going like Winston and Diva, even over Reinhardt Zarya in the Goats meta, just because of the map design. But it's hard, right? Because what if you create a map that is so heavily biased to DPS that like what does have that's what you have to play. Although I don't know, having Diva in the game and stuff, she's always gonna be played.
Yeah. So I do think that it's not one or the other. I feel like if you kind of subscribe to the main things that people do on Reddit and YouTube comments, it's like they're gonna say, I'm gonna point the finger and it's gonna be here, and then somebody's gonna say, oh me too, oh me too, until the mob mentality says this is the problem in the game. So you have certain things like that. There's always some merit to any lie. There's also a lot of merit in all the truth. Like it's really hard to pin down certain things. You could even say the lack of strength in a hero is because everything else is way too strong. A la Reaper, for example, right? Like everything else is just so strong that he's just weak. That's also a
Reaper's
thing
has
that's
even
there.
more changes coming in the PTR,
Yeah.
and we won't get too much into them, but they're pretty crazy considering what they've been with Reaper the whole time.
Hmm.
So we'll see how they go. I
Yeah.
think
I
my
definitely
cat
want
is
you
getting
guys to kind
hungry over
of.
here.
Yeah, he's attacking himself as well as your hand,
Yeah.
going ham for that tail over
He
there.
just likes grab my attention when he gets hungry. He's like, "Hey, hey, hey, you're not gonna
Hey,
ignore me anymore."
the cat cam is strong this week, but uh, if you guys are considering a lot of this, just remember Goats is mostly upper echelon team play Overwatch League. It's not necessarily going to be what you're going to be playing all the time in your games. You can still try to play. You can play 6 stacks and all that, but just remember the new patch that we started at the top of the show. Whatever you end up playing, if you can get your team to kind of centralize their ideas around some kind of strategy, and then kind of how they want to approach dealing with the enemy team strategy, that's where the game of Overwatch is really fun. Because then you're starting to play stuff that you're good at, you're starting to work at things that you can actually play, etc., etc. But it looks like the cat cam is going to take over here with a coup if we don't end the show soon, so that he can be fed. But let's thank our diamond sponsorships, Andres. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah. If you're a patron supporter, thank you so much. Shaz, Top Score Solutions, Crimson Fail, Benny and the Jets, Brendan D, Refire, Roger B, Chris the Playa, and Tragic Zach. We got a couple new patrons, 250 patrons, so too. So I'm hoping that they've heard the message and they want to get some coaching. We got Hunter B, Sergeant Deluxe, and Resurrect Me. Thank you for signing up. And if you guys are looking for a coaching session, make sure you reach out through Discord or send us an email. Both of them work. We also got an iTunes review from Erg. He says, awesome Overwatch podcast. These guys at Omnic Lab do a fantastic job covering all the things Overwatch. I really like their focus on the strategic aspects of the game, and that's what we're all about, baby. Thank you so much for the review. We got a little question here from Wanted Winston that what I want to clarify. We are definitely still doing Owl Recap. If you guys want some more focus on Overwatch League news, make sure you look up the podcast, Owl Recap, either on Twitter. You can also find us on Libsyn. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, all the general locations. I'm still doing it with Bob and Mel. Last night we had Frito from Your Overwatch. It was a great episode dissecting the finals and how stage one went for Overwatch League. So make sure to tune into that. Also, we've had a correspondent over in Burbank Arena, and we have some really cool interviews with individual players, asking them questions about their gameplay, about the new patch, about the meta, some personal questions too. Some of them have turned out really, really good. I don't, not even some of them, all of them have turned out really, really good. If you want to check that out, go to YouTube, Owl Recap on YouTube. Find those interviews. Bob has been putting a ton of work into them, and they're really worth the watch.
That's going to do it basically for the rest of the show. We're going to kind of plug our stuff and get you out of here. If you guys want to find us on the interwebs, the best way to contact us is through Discord and Twitter with the tags Not Rob and I Play Games. That's IPLAI Games. If you can search those in Twitter and Instagram, you can find it there. If you can't figure out what our usernames are on Discord, you can join our Discord channel. You can talk to us there. Owl Recap is also a part of our Omnic Lab Discord, so you can transition between Overwatch League and Overwatch very easily. We do have a crap ton of channels, so you can find your niche and go and hang out with people in specific channels that you'd like. Remember that game night is at the end of the month on the 29th, this Friday night, pretty much all evening. And if you guys want to find, let's see here, a link to our Spotify. There it is. Spotify is also in the show notes now. I've put it in there. You guys have access to that. We're always on Spotify now. So please go check it out. We will see you guys on the other side of game night, and hopefully after Baptiste releases, we'll have some more stuff to talk about. If you guys have some recommendations for the show, please shoot us an email, shoot us a message. Let us know what you want us to hear from in the podcast. Maybe more of a general topic that we can discuss and not something super specific. Save those for those player interviews. We'll see you guys next week. And remember, don't be a lab rat. Be a scientist. We'll see you on the flip-flop. Be good to each other.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Cloctopus. Subscribe tier 1. Thank you.
We might have to exit the show without the outro music today because I don't know why my
What's going on
music
with it?
software. Yeah. So just
Cloctopus and Bob, thank you guys for the tier 1 subs.
Saying goodbye over here.
We have a tier 2 sub button as well. That surprise Pikachu if you want it.
Oh yeah, Rob just added it. But thanks for the tier 1 subscription, Cloctopus thing, and Bob too, the 14th month in a row. Thank you so much.
We'll see you guys next week. Come to game night. Bye.
Bye.